Let's start with some breathing. Simple. In Tai Chi, the mind intending the movement is given priority over the movement itself. So that was a sentence in my teacher's short form handbook. So I'm moving the body, I'm breathing, but it's my mind that's starting it all. So here I intend the out-breath. So something in me has to squeeze to imagine that breath blowing out, and then the body does it. And now here I imagine the in-breath. I intend it with my mind. It's the sense that you really mean it. You really mean what you do. You do it with your full intention. And one way to intensify the intention is to make it difficult. So this is why we breathe through the small hole in the mouth. So here I really have to squeeze and press to get the air out of the small aperture. And then here I have to suck it in through the small hole. And then bring your attention to the very bottom of the spine. So the part of your spine beneath the min meng. So here I want my tailbone to be curling under. And then here my tailbone points backwards. So as my head comes forwards and my spine bows, my tail comes under. And then as my head goes back and my spine arches, my tail goes back. I want real looseness, flexibility, and movement in my lower spine, in my tail and my sacrum. So I want the sense that my tailbone is unraveling. It's extending into a real tail. So here I have like a cat's tail that goes backwards. And then here that tail just comes under. So it's really just relaxation. I'm just trying to relax my tail so that this movement can be expressed in it. To relax the tail, I have to really relax the sacroiliacs and the hips. And just into riding horse. So make sure the outside edges are forwards. That will really help the lower back relax. So we've swayed in this direction by doing that breathing exercise. And now just letting the head tip to the side. Feeling what's happening in the lower spine. So as my head tips this way, I want my tail to point down through the leg and through the ground. We want to sink differently than normal. So sinking is not simply bending the knee. It's extending your tail down through the leg, into the heel, into the ground, and down, down, down. So there's a sense here that something is penetrating through the leg and going into the ground. I'm not simply getting closer to the ground, I'm getting into the ground through my extending tail. Okay, now let's figure of 8. So a figure of 8 going around the feet. So what I don't want to do is simply trace that figure of 8 with my weight. So I'm not doing this. I'm trying to keep my dantian pretty much stable and stationary in the middle. I'm just pointing my tail. So I point my tail around this foot, and then I point my tail here. So there's a lot of rocking going on in the hips. Feels like there is anyway. To release the bottom part of your spine and get your tail working for you, you need to cultivate an inquisitive mind. So it's like a mind that's really probing and really interested. So that's what enables the tail to come out and do its business. So we have to somehow break out of the ego so that our energy can really go out and investigate the world. Something is oozing out of me. I'm squeezing. I'm doing something inside that's squeezing this tail of energy, this tentacle of energy from the bottom of my spine and around this trace. This tail energy has a mind of its own. So if you try and control it too much with your own mind, then you'll really crush it. So you just have to really just relax this area and just let it extend, let it come out. So it comes out because my body is relaxing and because my mind is intending. My intending mind is really simply opening up the channels and giving the energy permission to flow, and the details of the flow are not really up to me. A narrower step. Just a simple qigong. So just bringing the hands up to this point here, and then elbows out, and then just bringing the energy down to the dantian, where you pause slightly, and then you repeat. Keeping the legs relaxed so that your sacrum can feel as though it has a little bit of freedom of movement. Just a little bit wider. Really rocking the hips. So just trying to get this hip to come up and this hip to go down. And now just rocking this way. And so really getting the tail to go back and then pulling it under. And now back to a wider riding horse. And then just turning. Feel the tentacle that comes out of the back leg. So I turn here by pressing this leg to push this hip round. And I want to feel that as a relaxation. Something is flowing down my leg and causing the leg to straighten and to press the ground. And that I feel as a flow of energy down the leg, like a tentacle that's reaching out. And then to bring myself back, that tentacle just clutches the ground and pulls me round. And then this tentacle comes out and pulls me back. So as I turn away from the leg, it allows the leg to extend, that tentacle to extend down the leg. Again, it's my intending mind. My mind is seeing this flow. And so there's a flow. So energy is the flow of intention. So we move the body in Tai Chi. Like a monkey swinging through the trees. So if you imagine, let's bring the feet up and just try a different exercise now. So just very simple, just reaching forwards and pulling in. Imagine you're standing on the bank of the canal and someone has thrown you their rope from their barge and you're pulling in their boat. So you extend, you turn away from them to get extra extension down the arm, and then you pull, and that draws you round to face them. And then you extend the other arm, which takes you away from the front. So you're reaching out and pulling, like the monkeys swinging through the trees. One arm reaches out to grasp the next branch, holds on, so that the body can swing forwards and the other arm can reach out. So all of these exercises become meditation as you repeat them, as your mind settles into the exercise. It becomes meditative. And when it gets to that stage, there's a sense that the air has got thicker, like it's more difficult to move through the air, almost like your inertia has increased, simply because you've become quiet inside. And just register how it feels. So when I can see this hand, it feels a certain way. And as soon as I lose sight of it, it becomes quite different. I'm reaching into the dark, fumbling almost. And then there's a different, something comes to the fore in your energy, which is capable of reaching into the darkness. So I'm reaching, but I'm not reaching for something that I know is there. I'm reaching and just catching something. So this is the sense when you know what it is that you want, you'll always be dissatisfied by it, because really what we're looking for all the time is something that's beyond our imagination, something that's beyond our desires. The same thing, but now just reaching up. So I'm turning away from the hand. I want to wake up to the sensitivity that becomes revealed when I can't see, rather than having my sensitivity always locked into my eyes. So there's part of you that welcomes being taken by surprise. And now let's bring it back to the same thing, but now with the legs more. But really just getting the turning. I mean, you can just move side to side using the same thing. So I can pull with this leg and then pull with this leg. But it's nice. The turning's important. Otherwise, you never turn away from that blind side that we want to open up. So here I draw myself round, and then this can extend out, and then this draws me round. So exactly the same thing, but with the legs now. So we're just trying to make the legs just a little bit more like the arms. And we really want to appreciate the difference between simply seeing the movement, seeing this press that's getting me round, and actually intending the energy. So one is forceful and one is energetic. So if you intend the energy with your mind, if you use your mind to sort of squeeze and send this flow of energy out, then it's energetic. If I simply see it, it becomes more mechanical and forceful. So basically, when you use energy, there has to be emotion. You have to feel it. So it's not simply the mind, the intending mind, it's also a lot of heart. So here something really flows out. And then here, the emotion changes completely between extending something out and catching and pulling yourself round by pulling in. So this is what we really want to feel. We're really looking at the emotional profile of these exercises in great detail. So just allowing yourself to feel. I know it's difficult. And now let's just try basically the same thing, but just with bow and arrow posture. So let's just go back and forwards first. So the full and empty. So this, as I bring my weight off this leg, it just enables a wave of relaxation to flow down it. And I perceive that as energy. And then as I fill the leg, rather than thinking of it as in terms of the leg filling with my weight, I imagine the ground coming up into the leg to support me. And then just feeling the back leg at the same time. So my back leg is filling with the ground. My front leg is filling with the ground. And then as it empties, that's simply the tentacle of energy that's come out of my sacroiliac, slightly out from my leg and down, the same way that the tentacle of energy comes down your arm from the mid-back, from the spine, out a little bit and down the arm. I imagine that tentacle has gone down and I just hook it around and just pull. To get the energy to come out as the tentacle, you need to turn away from it. Not a lot, but just a sense that you're almost a little bit shy and you're just drawing that sort of sharp mind, you're just drawing your sharp mind away from it to just let the energy out. Because if you look at it too fiercely, you'll inhibit it. And then the same thing here. It's easier with the back leg because I'm turned away from it anyway. And then we can just take it into this exercise. So here there's a tentacle of energy extending from my mid-back down here, but also a tentacle of energy extending from my sacrum. It sort of comes out of the sides of the sacrum, almost like you've got two tails hanging down from either side of the sacrum. This tentacle or this tail reaches down, catches the heel, and then pulls me along. So when the energy comes out, the tentacle comes out, that's the attack phase. And then as I draw the tentacle in, either to pull the other person in towards me or to pull myself towards the other person, then that's the yielding phase. the other foot falls again, just that outside edge parallel to the wall. Just moving backwards and forwards, just feeling the filling as being the ground rising up through you, and feeling the emptying as the ground receding out of you. The temptation is always to bring the attention into the upper body. So to feel the arms, to feel the energy in the upper body. Partly because that's what we're used to doing. And it's also pleasurable. But what we want to bring our attention to is what's happening in the legs and the lower spine. So this is my hand reaching forwards, but it's also my leg reaching down into the ground. So we have to distinguish between fantasy and imagination. So it's my imagination that sees these flows. The fantasy would be if I forgot about the flows and just sank into the pleasure, because it's really pleasurable just moving softly and slowly with a sense of energy, but you can quite easily just get caught by that, and then it just becomes a fantasy because there's no real energy. So I'm always having to bring my mind down into the lower body because it's always wanting to come up into, that's the discipline aspect. Without discipline, it's just self-indulgent. Now let's bring it up again. So just getting this lilt, this figure of 8 going. So it's internal. Nothing much is happening externally, but there's a hell of a lot happening in my energy. So here I'm feeling these plumes coming out and around, not just here, but also here and here. And the smaller I can make it, the more invisible I can make it, the less energy gets lost in physical movement. It's like all the energy is in the energy world. So when you see these Tai Chi forms and they just look so minimal, like nothing's happening hardly, that they're probably the most energetic. So lifting a leg in order to step. What I want to get away from is this feeling that I'm simply moving my center of gravity over my heel so that I can lift this leg up. What I want to do, again, is just work with the tail that is unraveling and extending down the leg. I have to extend the tail down the leg and into the foot. And the best way to get into it really is just to think in terms of doing this part of the figure of 8. I'm loosening the tail in order to whip it around this figure of 8 here. So I just want the tail just to be loose and flexible enough that I can just whip it, just whip my hip and it will just flick out and come back. So here I'm going down the leg and that then enables me to pick up this leg. So there's a sense that part of me is actually in the ground. I've gone through the leg and into the ground. I haven't just settled onto my leg. So my mind has to extend down in order to lift up the foot. This is just so different than what we're used to. Because in order to step the way we normally do, which is just moving my center of gravity over the leg, basically this part of my body, my sacrum, my tail, has to really clamp up in order to make something that's sort of solid, that can settle. And this is what we're trying to do now is completely different, because I'm just trying to really open this whole area up so that it can extend down the leg. So this whole area has to remain really relaxed, but with a mind that is fiercely intending down. Going down the leg with my tail. It's that inquisitive mind, that sense of curiosity. Curiosity killed the cat. A curiosity that gets you into trouble if you're not careful. When you look at it in meditation, you can see that We think we're in the world. We think that we're open to the world, but we're not. We're locked inside this ego, which is hermetic. There's hardly any real flow. What comes in is really filtered. So here, what I have to try and do is just break out of that shell and just extend down so that part of me is really outside of my own body and in the world. So we tend to wake up to the world, not when we see it. We have all these devices in the mind to help us not open up to the world when we see it. It's almost like, oh, I've seen it. I don't need to worry about it now because I know what it is. I've recognized it. I've named it. It's like a dismissive mind. So what we want to do, this is why we're reaching into the dark all the time. So here I can't see where my tail is going. I just have to hope for the best. And that world, that blind world, is like the world of the blind man who has to fumble. He has to feel his way around with his tactile sense, with his touch. So touch is really, really important. So just feeling the foot touching the ground and something inside you squeezing through that interface, across the interface. So I'm going into the ground. And it is very much like a sort of snake or the tentacle of an octopus that's just unraveled and extended through the foot. So in the absence of the other person, you just have to concentrate on the part of you that's touching the world. So normally we think in, okay, I'm dealing with this other person in a martial sense or as a lover or whatever. So here I just want to wake up that faculty in my feet and my legs. And for that, the legs can't afford to be heavy. The heaviness of having to support this lump of a body. They have to have this light, probing, inquisitive sense of always wanting to reach out and touch. Yeah, so that foot can just reach, it can just touch really lightly. And so as soon as I put my weight into the foot, part of me is just wanting to tense up here, just to create a sense of solidity and a sense of stability. So part of my intending mind is simply refusing that and trying to push it out all the time, trying to expand through that fear, really, is what it is. It's a different emotion depending upon where I extend my foot. When I extend my foot behind, it's very different than when I extend my foot forwards. So just waking up to the emotion, the feeling, the heart that's in every part of the body. Feeling these outside edges. And so it's very difficult, all of this. Getting into the mind, into the intending mind, the energetic mind. So the thing about the ego is it's clever. It's produced copies of reality that enable you to sort of get by and actually be very successful in a world of other people with copies of reality. When we meditate, we're just trying to still the mind and just quieten down and just come inside. But that is so that the energy, the spirit, can then wake up and start extending into the world. So the ego has just found a way of just copying everything. So that sense of it being your spirit that wants to reach out, that the mind can also reach out, but it's sort of dirty. It's dirty and it's mean, selfish. Whereas spirit is just spirit. There's nothing selfish about spirit. It's just there and awake and alive. It's just the energy of life, really. All of these exercises, just trying to just meditate, quieten down inside them so that the spirit can start coming out and doing the exercise for you. And it's the same when you're sitting meditating. So you're just there quiet, you're just watching the breath. You're trying your best not to let the mind interrupt the breathing so that the spirit can come into the breathing. And then you can feel the spirit intending the breathing. So I'm breathing in before it's actually happened because my spirit has started it. I'm breathing out. So the body is always the last thing to move, including in the breathing. So here my spirit opens up, my mind expands, and my chest opens and the breath comes in. But it's the body moving, the body expanding to draw the air, and that's the last thing to move. So this is why we move slowly in Tai Chi, so that we can feel the different stages. The first stage being the spirit, the mysterious stage. and the final stage just being the body, by which time the spirit has gone on to the next stage. So there's always this overlap. The body is always lagging behind what the spirit is doing. So it all really just comes from the relaxation of the body, but especially the mind. So a relaxed mind is just quiet and still and empty. This is what people find it impossible to believe, because their minds are normally anything but relaxed. They're always full of something. So we just want it just to empty out. And then it's like it's just a clear space.